Elon Musk's Starbase. He calls it a technology monastery. Remote, secure, mostly engineers. Sounds almost peaceful, doesn't it? Except this monastery is swallowing over 7,100 acres of South Texas. It has its own government, its own proposed police force, and behind it sits a web of more than 90 shadow companies that nobody was supposed to find. The New York Times found them anyway. Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on the most ambitious private fortress being built in America right now. And what's happening in this stretch of Texas desert makes Zuckerberg's Hawaii bunker look like a holiday home. Elon Musk's Starbase isn't a rumor. It's not speculation. It's a rapidly expanding compound on the southernmost tip of Texas that is transforming from a rocket launch site into something that looks, functions, and governs like a private city-state. And the speed at which it's growing should have your full attention. We're talking about a facility anchored by a fabrication building called the Gigabay, roughly 700,000 square feet of manufacturing space where full-scale Starship rockets are assembled. That single structure is larger than most commercial airports, and it's just one building within a sprawling complex that now includes residential areas, operational facilities, and infrastructure that stretches across thousands of acres of what was, until very recently, quiet coastal wildlife habitat. Every claim in this video is sourced from reporting by the New York Times, Business Insider, Texas Tribune, and Euronews. No fabrication, no speculation dressed up as fact. Just what's been documented and why it matters. Here's where the story shifts from impressive to unsettling. In 2025, Starbase officially incorporated as a city. Not a facility, not a campus. A city with its own municipal government. And the moment that happened, the expansion plans stopped being theoretical. Starbase is now in the process of annexing over 7,100 acres of surrounding land. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 11 square miles, larger than some towns in Texas. And this isn't an empty desert with nothing on it. Portions of this annexation push into areas that include wildlife refuge land. We're talking about federally recognized habitat being absorbed into the administrative boundaries of what is, functionally, a company town controlled by SpaceX interests. The incorporation itself was reported across multiple Texas outlets. Local reporting from The Caller and MySA documented the annexation scope in early 2025, and the numbers are staggering. This isn't a tech campus with a nice cafeteria. This is territorial expansion on a scale that most private corporations have never attempted within the United States. Now, annexing land is one thing. What you do with the access points is another. And this is where Musk's Starbase starts looking less like a tech hub and more like a fortress perimeter. Boca Chica Beach. It's one of the last undeveloped stretches of coastline on the Texas Gulf. Public land, public access. Except increasingly, that access has been disappearing. SpaceX launch operations require beach closures. That part is understandable. You don't want civilians wandering near an active rocket launch. But the frequency and duration of these closures have been escalating, and local residents and environmental groups have been raising alarms that what started as temporary safety measures are becoming a de facto permanent lockout. This fight went all the way to the Texas Supreme Court. In early March 2025, legal action was filed challenging the extent to which SpaceX's operations have restricted public beach access. The core argument is straightforward. A private company, no matter how powerful, cannot functionally privatize a public coastline. Texas Tribune and Euronews both covered the legal battle in detail, and it's far from resolved. The broader pattern here is what matters. When you combine the 7,100-acre annexation with the beach closures, you get a perimeter, not a fence, something more effective. You get controlled territory where a single corporate entity dictates who enters, when, and under what conditions. That's not a campus, that's a buffer zone. But controlling the land is only half the picture. You also need to control the people on it. And Musk has been remarkably candid about what life inside Starbase actually looks like. In interviews reported by Business Insider, Musk himself acknowledged that Starbase is difficult to recruit for. His own words describe the challenge of luring families to what is, by any honest description, an isolated desert compound at the southern tip of Texas. The people who thrive there are engineers, mostly young, mostly single, mostly willing to live in a work-consumed environment that Musk himself frames as monastic. The technology monastery label isn't media spin. That's his framing. And when you visit, or rather, when the few journalists who've been granted access describe it, the reality matches the label. Cybertrucks reportedly serve as common transport around the facility. The vibe is insular. The nearest significant town is Brownsville, and even that requires navigating SpaceX-controlled roads to reach. For the engineers living on site, Starbase isn't just where they work, it is their entire world. The geographic isolation isn't a bug in Musk's plan, it's the architecture. Remote location means fewer distractions, fewer outside influences, and critically, fewer eyes on what's being built. Now, the real secret. And this one comes straight from the New York Times. In late February 2025, the Times published an investigation revealing that Musk's Texas operations are underpinned by a network of more than 90 companies. Not divisions within SpaceX or Tesla, separate legal entities, many of them registered in Texas, many of them with opaque ownership structures, and many of them involved in land acquisition, political influence, and infrastructure development across the state. Let that number sit for a moment. More than 90 companies. Operating in the background, acquiring property, engaging with local government, shaping the regulatory environment around Starbase and Musk's broader Texas footprint. This isn't one man buying a ranch. This is a corporate archipelago, dozens of entities working in coordination, each serving a specific function in a larger strategic picture that only becomes visible when you map them all together, which is exactly what the Times did. Among the connections, ties to the Boring Company, Musk's tunnel building venture. Now, the Boring Company's stated mission is urban transit tunnels. But when a tunnel boring company is operating within the orbit of a self-contained fortress city in the Texas desert, the implications extend well beyond traffic management. Whether those capabilities are being applied at Starbase specifically remains unconfirmed, but the corporate proximity is documented and the infrastructure expertise is there. So where does all of this go? What's the endgame for Starbase? The future plans that have been made public are revealing. A $14 million Starship park is in development. Part public-facing showcase, part recruitment tool, part statement of permanence. You don't invest $14 million in a visitor attraction for a temporary launch facility. That's a signal that Starbase is intended to be permanent, growing, and increasingly self-sufficient. There's also the push for a private police force. Starbase's municipal government has explored establishing its own law enforcement, which would give the city, and by extension, SpaceX's operational interests, direct control over security and policing within its boundaries. If that goes through, Starbase wouldn't just control the land, the beach access, and the infrastructure. It would control enforcement too. At that point, the comparison to a private city-state isn't hyperbole, it's a description. Now, let's put Musk's operation in context against what other billionaires are building. Zuckerberg's Kauai compound is 1,400 acres with an underground bunker. It's impressive, but it's a private residence, a defensive position designed to protect one family. Starbase is 7,100 acres and growing, with its own government, its own proposed police force, a network of 90+ supporting companies, and the explicit purpose of serving as the launch point for interplanetary colonization. Zuckerberg built a bunker. Musk is building a jurisdiction. And that distinction between a bunker and a jurisdiction is really the point of everything you've just watched. The billionaire infrastructure trend is evolving. First generation was buying remote land. Second generation was building fortified compounds. What Musk is doing at Starbase is third generation, building an entire governance structure around the fortress. He's not hiding from the future. He's not retreating behind blast doors. He's constructing a launch pad, literally and politically, for what comes next. Whether that's Mars colonization, American industrial dominance, or simply the most ambitious land consolidation a private citizen has pulled off in modern Texas history depends on who you ask. But the infrastructure doesn't lie. The 7,100 acres don't lie. The 90+ companies don't lie. And the Texas Supreme Court case over public beach access tells you that even the legal system is struggling to keep pace with the speed of this expansion. That's Elon Musk's Starbase, the technology monastery that's becoming a fortress city. 7,100 acres, its own government, its own proposed police, more than 90 companies operating in the shadows, and a legal battle over public beach access that's now sitting before the Texas Supreme Court. If you watched our last video on Zuckerberg's $270 million Hawaii bunker, you already know the pattern. The ultra-wealthy aren't just getting richer, they're building infrastructure. And the scale is accelerating. Next up, Bill Gates. And what he's been quietly acquiring across America makes all of this look like a starter kit. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Like this video if it changed how you think about what's being built behind closed gates. And drop a comment. Which billionaire's hidden empire should we investigate after Gates?